They need to feel safe that they can share with you whatever they want to share with you. And if you're constantly interrupting them and stepping on them, they're not going to feel safe that they can share. What they're going to think to themselves is, oh, what I'm saying probably sounds stupid, or what I'm saying is probably not what they want to hear. And so right now they feel uncomfortable. Later on, that evolves into almost resentment and mistrust. So your job is to, why did you reach out to me? What can I do for you? STFU, and let it roll. Take notes if you have to. Listen to what they're saying, and that will be the first step on the STFU concept.
Welcome to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This podcast is dedicated to helping overwhelmed outdoor living professionals, landscapers, and hardscapers just like you increase your closing rate to over 75% without doubling your workload so you can build a seven-figure business that doesn't need you. I'm your host, Joshua Gillow. Let's dig in. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Daniel Bai's back with me here. Last week, if you haven't heard it, we talked about how leaving your clients guessing is killing your closing rate. So if you have a problem closing projects, you're that 2 to 3 out of 10, like the industry average, go back and listen to that episode. There's a lot of great nuggets dropped in there to help you set expectations and bring clients through an experience that will help you improve your closing rate. So this week, Dan, I want to go deep into this concept with you is, why are you killing your closing by talking too much and neglecting your clients' needs? So before I get started, do you think that people talk too much as salespeople?
Yes. Yes. And yes. And as just demonstrated, we are terrified of dead air. Now, in a podcast, dead air is devastating, right? But in a sales conversation, occasionally, it's okay to have some dead air. But instead, what most salespeople do when they're not sure about what they're doing and how to do it and they're not prepared, they're always going to do a lot of this jibber jabber, and they start talking about their dog from 1942 that had only had one leg and one testicle, and they would talk about Aunt Marge and then talk about Uncle Tom and how they didn't get along, and talk about all of your experiences and all your past projects, and you bring a book of all of your past projects, how great you are and how awesome this material is and all those things. And so ill preparedness is what usually leads to you not taking your time and allowing your clients to truly express what they truly want, need, or desire. It's a skill, it's an art, very easy to learn, very difficult to master. But if you don't understand the concept right off the bat, then you'll be a jibber jabber talking over your clients, and that obviously breaks trust and doesn't make your clients feel safe, and a lot of bad things happen.
And listeners, I hope you just picked up what Dan just did. He showed you both sides of that. He showed you the quiet, or not quiet, but the more reserved, focused question with space between them, and then he went into jibber jabber mode, where most, and heck, I was doing that for most of my career. I thought in sales, the goal is you show up to the front door, you knock on the door, your heartbeat goes up, and it's showtime. Now it's time to put on a performance. And they want you to talk the whole time. And that's something that I never realized until I started working with you, that I talk way too much. And the question really at the end of it, after that meeting, hour meeting with that client, if I really looked at my paper and looked at how much I got, if you will, or I found out, or I learned about that client or their needs, wants, or desires, it was small. It was all about telling my story and how my pavers were better and how my base was better and how my plants have a warranty and how blah, blah, blah down through. And the clients really didn't get a whole lot of time to talk. It was 20-80 rule. We talked about that in the last episode that we're going to talk about it here. This idea that we as professionals should only be talking about 20% of the time in a sales situation. And we should be leading with great questions so that the clients can speak for 80% of the time. So listeners, if you're brazen enough to put your iPhone in your pocket and put memo record on and go into your next meeting and just put it in your pocket and just record your conversation, come out in the vehicle afterward and listen, do you fit that 80-20 rule? Or when you go on to showtime walking in the front door, do you go into blabbermouth and you're pushing clients away because you're talking way too much? It's a challenge.
It is a challenge. It's a reflex. And I'm not saying that the people who talk too much are people who just like to talk too much. I'm going to say that many of the salespeople out there who are talking over their clients at a rate of more than 20%, we're doing it because we are not prepared. We don't know the appropriate skilled questions to ask, right? So hopefully today we'll give some examples, but people need space to fill the vacuum. So the analogy I want to give is if there's a constant tension between, two vessels, and I'm talking to people who understand mechanics or some type of physics, and the world always wants to be in equilibrium. So if you're putting too much air into a balloon, let's say, and there's another straw that's going in there, that other person doesn't need to put any air in. There's no investment. They don't need to do anything because you're putting all the air in. But what if you reserved your air and we have to maintain equilibrium? Then the other party will always find the need to fill that void, right? So the less we speak and the more that we ask skilled questions, the reflex on the other side, your clientele, is to speak and share, right? And fill that void to maintain equilibrium in this relationship. And by doing so, man, you'll uncover some stuff that you never, ever thought any of your clients will say. They'll tell you things that are so close to their hearts, things that they truly want, need, or desire, to a point, I'm telling you, where Kleenexes come out, okay? I'm telling you, where they start losing their stuff, and they start crying, and they start telling you stories, when my son or daughter returns from the service in 4 years, when he finally gets discharged, I want to have the space to throw a big party for him. He's been serving our country for the last 12 years, and his daughter is already 6, hasn't seen his daughter in 5 years, and I want to be able to reunite them in my backyard and throw a huge party. Oh my God, I'm welling up. Because this is the stuff that happens, and that only happens if you learn how to STFU, is what we're saying.
Absolutely. And why don't you tell us a little bit about STFU? I know it's one of your terms, and I've adopted it well, but I'd love for you to explain what that means. And if we're jabber jabbers and we love to talk and we get nervous and our mouth just goes constantly like this, how do we break that? So first, tell us what STFU means.
Well, STFU stands for, I don't know if we could do it on the podcast, but you might have to put a little explicit notation on it, but it's shut the F up. Shut up. Don't talk. Just stop. Now, how that works is, again, we have to be prepared with skilled questions. And one of the skilled questions that we always like to ask is an open-ended question, right up front, is, what are you looking to do? Why did you reach out to us? Or what prompted the call? Now, these are all open-ended questions. And now the challenge here is let them share as much as they possibly want to share without you stepping on them. And you'd be surprised. It sounds easy, but I'm telling you, many of the non-trained salespeople in any industry will ask a question like that because someone said to ask it, but they forgot the STFU part. Ask a question, open-ended, fold your hands and listen. STFU, and take everything that they're saying. Because one of the things that we need our clients to feel, again, we talked about this in the last episode, is safety. They need to feel safe that they can share with you whatever they want to share with you. And if you're constantly interrupting them and stepping on them, they're not going to feel safe that they can share. What they're going to think to themselves is, oh, what I'm saying probably sounds stupid. Or what I'm saying is probably not what they want to hear. And so right now they feel uncomfortable. Later on, that evolves into almost resentment and mistrust. So your job is to, why did you reach out to me? What can I do for you? STFU, and let it roll. Take notes if you have to. Listen to what they're saying. And that will be the first step on the STFU concept.
Yeah, and I love it. And just integrating that idea, and I didn't realize, Dan, before I started training with you, I didn't realize how much I would ask a question because I wanted to talk, like this, like, hey, so what do you want in the backyard? Well, yeah, I'd love to have a new patio. Patio would be great. How about a 10 by 20? That'd be perfect out there. I can see it already. Your chair's over here. All the assumptions start coming in. So I'd let them talk for a fraction of a second, and then I would talk over them. And the problem was that I wasn't hearing what they were really meaning, because they may choose certain words out of millions of choices of words and put them together to explain what's on their heart or on their mind or in a picture in their head. But if we don't give them the space, that STFU side, if we don't just give them the space and the silence to fill it, we're guessing. And you know what? I don't know about you, but I'm not a good guesser.
Yeah.
I know that you used to play cards and a lot of stuff, and I know guessing is not part. There's a lot more of a strategy involved, right?
Totally.
It doesn't work that way.
Oh, that way. Yeah. Yeah. We can't guess.
But it's the guessing. It's like, I know more than you. And since you hired me, I'm a professional, so I should talk the most. Like, there's a show involved. And I go back to that example of their front door and your heart beating hard and I got to put on a performance. I challenge anybody out there that feels that pain, because I did that for most of my career in the very beginning. It was, all right, so what if that's not the case? What if I got to that door and said, oh, how can I serve this client? God, please just give me the words that I can serve this client. And be done with it right then and there. There's no performance. There's no right or wrongs when it comes down to it. You're just sitting back like a detective or like a doctor asking questions. You know, a doctor would never be like, you walk in the room and be like, hey, you know what, Dan? Yeah, I just saw your paperwork. I saw your name. You need the purple pill. That's the one you need. Yep, that's the one right here. It is. Like, take it and go. And you're like, you don't even know what's wrong with me. You don't even know what's going on. You don't know anything about me. You don't know what else I'm taking. You don't know any of that stuff. My stress levels, none of that. You just want to give me something. That's how we treat our clients. We treat them with that exact kind of pharmaceutical mindset of like, hey, here's a pill. It'll fix it. But you don't even know what my problem is. So that's not how doctors work, thank goodness. They actually do ask questions.
Well, many do act that way. I know that for a fact.
You know more about that than I do.
Yeah, I do.
But in general, in our world, it is so much like, I'm so busy. I don't have the time to start peeling this onion. I don't really care, to be honest with you. I just want to sell my wares because ultimately I'm missing my kid's baseball game tonight. So I just need to go home with some win that I can show the wife and my son why I'm not there. Anyway, we start to assume, we start to push, we start to overtalk our clients. What if, to Dan's point, what if we gave them the stage to talk and we learned how to ask good questions and how to continue those questions going deeper? What if we learned how to do that as an industry? How would that change how our clients respond to us, not react, but respond to us with deeper insight? Because pretty soon, the crazy part is they might have said they want an outdoor kitchen. And so for the designers out there, you might be thinking, okay, grill, storage, refrigerator, maybe a sink, lots of counter space, because that's what an outdoor kitchen is. And if you stop right there, if you stop at that moment and you say, got it, okay, cool, next. And you go to the design table and you start designing the space out and you put the grill, the kitchen, the refrigerator, the sink and the storage, all that stuff in there. And you take it back to him and she's like, yeah, that's not what I wanted. All I wanted in an outdoor kitchen was a simple charcoal barbecue round grill because my grandfather had one. And when I did my backyard, I want the smell of the charcoal, even though I know it's ridiculous. You completely missed the mark. But the other guy of the three, asked the question, said, hey, all right, so you talked about an outdoor kitchen. What does that look like for you and your family? Well, you know what? She would go right into it. She'd be like, you know what? When I was a kid, I remember going to my grandparents' house. They always had this little charcoal grill. And I said, one day when I buy a house and I do an outdoor space, I'm going to have a charcoal grill just like Pap used to have. And I'm going to have my kids grow up with that in their background too. And maybe one day they'll do it too, because I remember all the experiences I had around that charcoal grill and all the steaks and burgers we made on the times it would flare up and there'd be fires and we're putting a lid on it and how to light that thing. He taught me under his arm how to light those briquettes. And like, if we don't ask the question, we'll never get there. And if you go in there assuming you know because outdoor kitchen equals X to you, you're missing a massive opportunity to serve.
Wow, man, that's the lesson right here. Can I back up about something you just said, Josh, about serving through the sales process? I think this is a really good time to talk about that. Is if you're out there thinking the sales process is just a means to an end, or you think that sales is really just a transaction or just a means to an end to get the dough, that's probably why you suck at it. And I'll just put it out right there. The sales process, and I'm just going to take one of the keys out of your brain and maybe spin a top inside of safe Inception reference. If you guys know that movie, I love that movie, is sales is part of the service. In other words, when you're asking these questions, open-ended, STFUing, allowing your clients to say more than you say, what you're actually doing is providing a service, right? By the way, people get paid a lot of money per hour for this. It's called therapy, right? They're designed to sit there and listen, right? Well, what's the purpose of that? Well, there's a huge value in letting other people that have a need, want, desire share something with somebody else, even if it's a stranger. It's a huge value.
Yep.
You take that away from them in the sales process, you're not serving them, right? Have you ever wondered that if people are sharing, you may be the only person in their entire lives that actually sat and listened to them on what they truly want, need, or desire. How many people in this world complain that they are alone? How many people in this world complain they are not heard, that they're ignored, that they're not taken seriously, they're not respected, their wishes and desires are irrelevant? How many times have you heard people complain about that? This is a disease in humanity. This is something that people struggle with worldwide. What about you as a landscape design architect, right? Are able to provide that for people? What do you really want? You want a kitchen, got it. What does that look like for you? Where are you standing? Who's doing the dishes inside? How many people are here? Do you have people standing around watching you grill? Oh, do you want the charcoal thing? Where would you want it? Because I want to make sure that, it's in a place where people can still congregate. Do you like cooking alone? Do you like people around you? Where do you want the fridge? Do you want to be bothered? Draw that picture for me, Josh. Like, what is that? Walk me through. Let's just role play here. Like, what would that look like? This will really help my design, give you exactly what you really want, need, or desire. Help me out, STFU. Got it. Pause. Part 2. Let's talk about the pause for a second. Incredibly awkward, I know, for many of you. I want to say one thing about the pause, and that is that when a client listens and watches an expert, an authority on a subject matter, professional, pause, they don't think it's awkward. You know what they're thinking? They're thinking, what is he thinking? What is it about my situation that is requiring so much profound thought? I thought I was just putting in the outdoor kitchen. Wait a second. There may be more to this. He knows something that I don't. What is he talking about? What is he thinking? Incredibly intriguing. That is exactly how professionals act. Smart ones, conscientious ones, empathetic ones, professionals. They pause. If you're watching this on video, you should see me contemplating something, and no one really knows why. But that's what I do. So when you pause like that, it doesn't hurt the process. It helps the process. It increases your value. And by the way, you're not pausing for the sake of pausing. You're really pondering thought here. What do they really want? What do they really need? Our last clients wanted this and this. I wonder if they want that. I wonder if they're going to say that. What about this? What about that? What next question can I ask to get deeper into what they truly want, need, or desire? This is what professionals do. So the STFU concept, Josh, I know you know this, but I don't know if the listeners do. It's not contrived. You're not just STFUing for the sake of STFUing, You're staying busy in your head, trying to navigate the next set of questions that will truly help your clients open up on what they truly want, need, or desire. And that's the whole name of the game here.
It really is. And it is amazing when you start peeling that onion and starting to ask purposeful questions, how your clients open up and like, no one's ever asked me that before. No one's ever taken the time. I didn't even realize that was the reason why I wanted to do this. And you don't need to be a psychologist to do this stuff. If you have a list of 10 questions or even 5 questions that you go into your sales calls with that are profound, deeper questions, and that's what we teach in our courses is how to do that in the right order. But at the same time, if you just had a handful of them to work with, you'd be surprised by when you take that pause. And the pause is, I'm so glad you taught me that, Dan, because I've used that so many times authentically, not just because I wanted to be a funny guy about it, but at times, when a client says something and you say nothing next, they might be like, yeah, I want an outdoor kitchen. Well, tell me a little bit more about what that looks like for you. It's kind of like, I'll place you with a grill and a fridge. Okay. And then you just be quiet. And you just look at them, right? And they're like, well, you know what I mean? Like, with a countertop and a refrigerator, and I want an area for I can have my paper towel dispenser. And like, they feel that I call it the pregnant pause, right?
Yeah.
They feel this need to birth new information, right?
Yeah.
And but if you keep your mouth shut, you're allowing them the space because they're used to the context of most conversations, especially with contractors, that they're being told what they should like, what they should need, what they should desire, because contractors don't have time. They're too busy. They don't want to listen. They're guys. They're just rough and tumble, and they build stuff.
Yeah.
They don't listen well. But that's the difference of a true professional versus someone who will always be working in their business and never be able to actually own a business. The difference is being able to slow it down, be purposeful with your conversation with your clients, ask good questions. How and what questions are always the best, because that's going to, give you a much more bigger opportunity to claim clarity, and also to get much deeper into their true needs, wants, and desires. So patience. Again, if you're going after 10 leads a week and you're trying to go meet them all, pre-screen them, get down to maybe the 3, 4, or 5 that you know are going to be a highest probability of being able to say yes, and you're going to be able to guide them through this process and give them this experience, and then go spend some time with them. Peel that onion, layer by layer. Let them tell you. The coolest part of all this, Dan, this is the part that gets me so excited about teaching this to the industry, is that we have the opportunity to design these outdoor spaces. So we have to take ideas that the clients are giving us, and we then have to pen them to some kind of a design, whether it's a hand sketch or whether it's a 3D design, it doesn't matter. We have to take what we heard and create a visual representation of that, right? So that we have certainty from both the client's side that that's what they want, and our side so we know what we have to build. So we want to agree on the center point, which is our design. Now, if you're going out assuming everything, yeah, Mrs. Jones, you said kitchen. So that's that sink, the grill, the storage, the refrigerator, the countertop, because that's what it means to me. And you put that out there. What happens is you're stuck taking a design back to Mrs. Jones that she doesn't even want.
Right.
And or she doesn't want, need, or desire what you're offering, because deep down, to my example earlier, she wants a little round charcoal grill area. Now, the cool part is, this is where it gets really interesting. If you get rid of the assumption part, because assumption only makes an ass out of you and me every single time. So if we stop assuming and start asking questions, here's what happens. This is where the magic happens, guys. If you're listening to this on a road, pull over for this one. You're going along and you're asking those questions. Every time Mrs. Jones gives you one more layer of that onion, she's adding color, if you will, to the design. So you ask the question, hey, what does that outdoor kitchen look like for you? That's like a framework of the picture, if you will, a black marker around the silhouette of what we're going to color in. Now we give her the brushes. So walk me out there on a Sunday afternoon. What are you doing? How are you using this space? And she starts painting this picture for you. She's adding color to your design. And you're like, wait a minute here. This is amazing. You asked her 2 or 3 levels of questions. The next thing you know, when you go back to your design studio to design this project for Mrs. Jones, you know exactly what you have to design for her. So when you take it back to her, she's going to be like, oh my goodness, you're in my head.
Yes.
The other 2 people just said outdoor kitchen. So here's an outdoor kitchen that I think it should be.
You're in my head. So fun.
Right. And it's a crazy part though, right? And then when it comes to price, she's like, the other 2 didn't listen, but you did. And you're premium. Let me sign right here. Because at least you listened.
Yeah.
That's the difference, listeners. You listen to your clients, let them paint the picture, let them color it in. So when you go back to that studio, you already know what you're designing. You're not going to get stuck in there sitting on a piece of paper or on your desktop thinking, what am I going to do for this project?
Yep.
They want a kitchen and a patio, but how is it going to work? Let them paint the picture for you. Your chance of being able to serve that client is much higher, and they're going to get what they want, need, and desire. And that's what makes them raving fans.
No doubt. Crazy. I got 2 things to add to that, and that's about the empty open air. I had a client once. He was a radio DJ back in the day, so dead air was not allowed. So obviously he had a challenge with that, right? So maybe some of you are not radio DJs, but maybe you fit the mold. It's a tough habit to break. It requires training. And hanging out on this podcast is absolutely part of your training, so hang out here more often. The next concept analogy I want to give you is regarding the STFU 80-20 rule, is dating. Now, I can only speak from the male perspective, and I remember when I was single back in the day, and I knew for a fact that the worst way for me to go on a first date was for me to do 80% of the talking and her do 20% of the talking. And if you're going back to your dating days, or if you're still dating, you do know that the best way get a second date is to ask open-ended questions. Let that other person, your date, share more than you're sharing. Okay. And if we do that, usually the other party, in my case, until I figured this out, there was something about the experience of sharing a lot with one person that makes you want to do it again, you know? And also it builds a little bit of good mystery, good enigma on your end, right? That positions you more as a higher status frame. And that's another topic we can't talk about right now, but a higher status frame. Higher status frame people speak less, mean more, right? And we've heard all these platitudes before, but no one's really taught us how to execute them on a strategic level. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. But man, this is good stuff, man. Good stuff. They are going to tell you exactly what they want, need, or desire by the mere virtue of us refraining from things that we normally would say. Awesome stuff.
Yeah. So again, if you want to find out how much you do talk during your sales process, take your phone, put it in your pocket, put it on record on your voice memo, and just record a random meeting and go back and listen. It may curl your toes.
Yeah.
I know it did for me. It was horrible. I listened and I was like, I don't do that stuff. Then I listened to myself talk. I'm like, you wonder why you're closing 3 out of 10.
Yep, no doubt.
That's exactly why. The entire time I talked, I was so important. I knew all the specs. I memorized the Techo Block book. Like I had all that figured out, figuring it was a performance. When I realized it's not a performance, you're a guide. You're there to listen and ask questions. You're a doctor, if you will, or a detective. If you come from that perspective, everything changes. So then I was like, holy moly, that's how we consistently now get, projects, 6-figure plus projects, because we listen. We've created a process in which we can do that strategically and purposefully over and over repeatedly. And that's where we can get that information. So the overall lesson here is talk less, sell more. Right? Don't be afraid to embrace the pause. Ask a question, leave it open. If you ask a question to a client and they don't answer you, just stand there and look at them. They will respond. It'll be awkward. But then you're setting the frame of who's asking the questions and who's not necessarily in charge, but who's driving the boat.
Yeah.
Because clients want to hire somebody who's going to handle this stuff for them. They don't want to be thinking, I'm going to hire this guy and I've got to babysit him all the time.
Yeah.
They want someone to lead them.
Yes. Oh, man, that's another episode right there.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I mean, we need to touch on this because this is really important. Is a lot of the times, salespeople will drive the conversation and say a lot and what have you. And there's a confusion on who's leading here. You are leading, okay? And they want a leader. And that's the thing. I mean, I know nothing about how to design and build a backyard, right? To build an experience for my family. So why would I hire Josh? Because he's the leader. He needs to be the GC of this whole thing, literally the GC of this whole thing, right? I need him to be the person in charge. Otherwise, why am I hiring him? I would just figure this out for myself. People want that. People want that. If you go to a doctor, you want them to, assuming you trust them and their authorities and their experts, like you want them to take charge and take care of it. No, like
yeah,
I don't want to do it.
Lead and guide you.
Yeah, I don't
exactly. You don't want to walk in and be like, yeah, open the book and pick. This is a big thing in our industry. Is hey, here's the Techo Block or the Unilock catalog. Yeah. Here, you pick your favorite paver, and then I'll put together a proposal for you.
Horrible.
And then you're like, you get all these choices. You're like, there's 1,600 choices, it seems like, in the book. And you're like, I don't know which one fits. I've never seen this book before. You want me to do that as the consumer, as the homeowner? And then you put, again, confusion. They're like, I don't know. I want someone to tell me which one I think is going to be best for you.
Correct.
How we do it. We're like, hey, look, there's a lot of choices in here. Based on what you've told us so far, I believe these 3 would be your best choices. This one, I think it works best. You tell me what you think. And then all of a sudden it's clarity. Boom. They're like, you know what? We're going to go with what you think because we think it's the best too. And that's our job, is to be that clarity, not to hand them the book and say, you figure it out. Doctor doesn't say, here's a book of pills, pick which one you want based on what they see in whatever, butterflies or whatever the hell they're trying to promote. You know what I mean? It's like there needs to be that professional guidance that comes with the sales experience.
Yeah.
And that's what this is really all is at the end. So talk less, sell more. Don't be afraid of that pause. It's a pregnant pause. Things will come out of it. There will be things that you're going to learn. Don't be afraid to peel that onion. If Mrs. Jones says kitchen, say, what does that look like for you? and future pace it. Like, okay, you're out there on a Sunday afternoon. What are you doing around that kitchen? The patio for the same thing. Like, okay, we can just do a quick patio for you, but I'd really like to build something that you're going to love forever. So how are you going to use this space? What does it look like when you have friends over? What size table do you need? How many times do you entertain? How and what questions? Constantly asking. Try not to get to the yes or no answers. Like, so it looks like you want to put a patio in, right? Yes.
Right.
Okay. That you didn't get any information. Instead of reframing that question and be like, all right, so you mentioned you wanted to put a patio in. Could you tell me more about what that looks like for you? How will you use it? Who will be here? All these kinds of things. You're peeling that onion. Okay. So in a perfect world, what does a perfect patio look like for you and your family? And then these are just simple, low-hanging fruit questions, softballs, that'll open your client up. But here's the secret, listeners. I'm going to end with this. Here's the secret. When you ask the question, STFU, wait for them. And don't you start enhancing or trying to embellish what they're saying or support them in what they're saying. Shut your mouth and listen. Let them do all the talking. And then as they're talking, think, okay, what else would I like to know about this? And lead them with another question and go a little deeper, a little deeper. And by the end, you should have the picture fully painted of what Mrs. and Mr. Jones wants for their backyard. So when you go back to that drawing board, you just got to bring that to life.
Yeah.
And then you can be the premium guy that goes back with a design that knocks their socks off, and they're not sitting there complaining about just the price anymore. Because when they say, look, I want a raised terrace that I can sit out and bake like a seal on in the backyard, make sure you utilize their words and you give them that raised terrace so they can bake like a seal. You better bet you in that 3D design, there better be Mrs. Jones on a raised terrace baking in the sunshine as you're panning around in your design, because when she sees herself there drinking that glass of wine or whatever she described it as, guess who just got a project?
Josh, you know what a close deal for me? If I told someone I want to bake like a seal on my terrace, and the design came back with a seal baking on a terrace, I swear, for me, because humor is one of my core values. It's like, dude, you have the job. I mean, that's just so perfect. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's not for everyone, but I'm just saying, for me, if I told them I want to bake like a seal on a terrace, and design came back with a little seal that is baking on a terrace and sunbathing with with a little thing, I'd be like, oh my God, that is just precious. I would save that design, frame it. I would say that is just freaking awesome. Yeah, good stuff then.
Yep. But it's all about listening, right? At the end of the day. So if you're talking too much, you're not listening. When your mouth's moving, you're not hearing. So trade those, it'll change, and that'll change the way that your sales go. And you're going to be changing that 3 out of 10 to a much higher closing rate, and then you're going to be able to grow your business. So Dan, thank you for coming back on here. Thank you for all of your wisdom and guidance. Next week, guys, we're going to talk about the number one communication technique that can lead you to a ton more new sales and increase your customer buy-in. If that's something you want, don't miss
that one, man.
Oh yeah, I can't wait for this one.